Hi, and welcome to a Chilltendo informative video. Today we're going to be discussing cleaning Super Nintendo cartridges. So, lately I've been super diving back into collecting SNES in particular, and I've been focusing on lots of the wheat and chaff games, you know, your shitty sports games, and just the games that they made millions of copies of that people don't particularly care about. The cheaper you find a lot, typically the dirtier that lot is. Some of the lots I've gotten lately have been, well, downright disgusting. And there's not a huge amount of information out there on cleaning Super Nintendo games or classic games in general, and a lot of these tips aren't just specific to Super Nintendo cartridges, so keep that in mind. Yeah, let's dive into it.
Alright, so I got a big old stack of Super Nintendo games over to the side here. You can't see them, and unfortunately I don't have the best recording setup at the second, so I'm just going to pick a few of the grossest games out of this stack and just show you a few tips on how I get these things looking nice and shiny. So we got a copy of Pinball Dreams here, and I don't know, let's see here. Yeah, you can see that label is just gross. Now most of this is light surface stuff. Well, just as you can see, mostly will scratch off. Some of it looks like, you know, residue from like maybe an adhesive, but a lot of this just looks like it got splashed with some kind of disgusting food garbage. Like you can see all of this, all this shit in here. And again, I apologize for the not great quality of this video. If I do more of these, then we'll get some better equipment going here. But yeah, so to start, I use a few main things. Q-tips. These are an absolute necessity for getting inside your pins here, especially. Also, let's see if I can find one real quick. One of the cartridge styles that has the little slot in the front of it. Yeah, like this Mario Paint here. The Q-tip, perfect size to clean those grooves out there. And then on top of it, I also utilize these are cotton pads. Originally, I'd actually bought these way back a couple years ago when I used to be pretty heavy into the vaping, and I used to use them, you know, pull them apart and use them for cotton. But these are just these are Japanese makeup cotton pads, and the light outside texture of these actually work really well for working inside the grooves and getting in between the textured surfaces of the Super Nintendo cartridges. And then I also very, very rarely I do have an old toothbrush. Well, not an old toothbrush, but a toothbrush specifically for cleaning things. And I rarely use these on cartridges because most of the time you're like, on this one I might use it in these sides here, but as you'll see in the video, you have to be real careful with it because the liquids can get anywhere, damage labels, etc. So three main things I use for solvents: purified water. That is just a great place to start. Now obviously you don't want to use that like on label surfaces because it can damage it, the glue and stuff like that, but for these plastic surfaces it'll work very decently to clean up just like the surface grime and dust, and especially if like your cartridges came from a smoking household or shit like that, it'll go a long way towards just starting the cleaning process. The other stuff I use beyond that is just some pretty generic 91% isopurple. A lot of people will tell you don't utilize higher percentages. I have it around for other purposes besides cleaning cartridges, so I use that, and honestly I don't typically use it near label areas, but you can also just dilute your isopurple as well. And then the other thing that I use for specifically for solvents for cleaning is this stuff right here. Now Bestine is something that I came across in my months and months of researching this stuff on random forums and crap, and it's, as you can see on the label, it's actually specifically designed for rubber cement, and it's a solvent or a thinner. The nice stuff about this is, in my experience, it's worked pretty much just as well as the high-grade isopurple has, but this will not, this will not destroy the glossiness on the labels of your cartridges. So like with isopurple, if you rub too much, you can actually destroy the glossy layer and start pulling up the inks and destroy the label itself. So far, in my experience with Bestine, I have not had that problem. It is very kind to the labels, and I've even gone so far as to utilize that on removing some stickers from some of my complete in-game boxes that I have, and I even used it to with limited success from removing a price sticker from SNES game manual. Now that was a very tricky process, and if I ever run across another one of those again that I have a manual that I want to remove a label from, I will definitely record that, because it's a very time-consuming process, but if you do it correctly, you can do it without damaging anything. So anyways, I've talked enough about this BS. Let's get this process started. So like I said, I'm going to start with water on this one. So for those, I will take just one of these cotton pads here and typically fold in half, and just take a bottle of water and give it a little shake on there. And you'll notice I have everything laid out in paper towel here, and the main reason for that is I will actually use the paper towel to blot out a lot of the moisture from the pads they're using, so you don't have too much in there. And so you're just going in and, you know, giving everything a scrub down. And again, this is just, you're starting the process. You don't want to go like super heavy, like a lot of elbow grease when you're using the solvents, because you can and will damage the texture of the Super Nintendo cartridges, and it'll give you that kind of like worn or almost sanded look in certain areas. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it's unavoidable, but you want to avoid that as much as possible, obviously. Now, up close in here, I will typically get a little bit close to a label, but again, you're just paying attention to how close you're getting, because you don't want to get even the edges of that label wet. It'll ruin everything. So same thing up here. We're just going to it's going to run along the edges, being careful of the label. And again, this is just water, water and a little bit of force. And my whole thought process, at least behind this, is that the light textures of the cotton is actually, like, plus the water and the moisture are allowing you to get deeper into the grain than if you were just to use like a paper towel or something like that. So at this point, just giving a little wipe down, and I don't know actually how well you can tell because of my not so great resolution in this camera here, but already the plastic surfaces have cleaned up a bit, and you can see this got pretty dirty. So now, because we have so much close or actual on-label work here, I am probably going to forego using rubbing alcohol on this cartridge at all, and I'm just going to jump directly into the Bestine. Typically with this stuff, definitely use it in a well-vented area. I have a window cracked open, even though it's frigid out here in our Michigan winters. And I also recommend capping it as soon as you're done dipping, because this stuff evaporates very quickly. And you're just giving a light wash over. If I had a nicer resolution camera, I could probably even show you just how quickly this stuff flashes off. Like, it's pretty much instantaneously gone once you apply it. Now it will, you will get this, and I'll show you more on the back labels, but you will definitely see some wetness bleed on the edges if you apply too much Bestine, but in my experiences so far, that has pretty much just, you let it dry and it evaporates off and it doesn't damage the labels. So you can see here we're just scrubbing away, and this is not it's not a short process. It requires some patience. And one might wonder, why would you spend so much patience on what is arguably probably about a $7 value game at most? And it's because I love Super Nintendo. So a lot of times as your Q-tips start to get dirty, I will just commonly switch sides, dip up, because you don't in my mind, I don't want to be rubbing that dirt in. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes logical sense in the long run, but it makes me feel better. So now, at this point, with this being some surface level crud, I'm just going to lightly use my thumbnail to start scraping the stuff off that we've loosened up with the Bestine. The nice thing about this Bestine, especially in the case of adhesives or whatever this weird, seemingly food residue is that it'll dry the stuff out, and so it'll make it that much easier for you to just flake off. This might not have been the best example cartridge because this thing is rough, but you'll definitely be able to tell how well this stuff works and how, I mean, honestly, liberally I'm applying it, and to, no real damage effect to the label itself. So already, we've got some nice cleanup in that corner. It's not perfect by any means, and it's going to take me some more time and a lot more Q-tips, but we'll get there. Ugh, gross. See that? Oh, that's a lovely sound. So, now a lot of times, and you can't see it right now because I'm leaning back in my chair out of the angle of this camera, but I will hold it up to a light and look at it on like a reflective angle, so you can start to actually see more of like the textured surface of the label itself. And so that's going to kind of give you a clue as to where your stuff you're trying to remove is more located. Is it seated into the label itself, or is it more just like a weird grime on the surface like it is in the case of this one here? So this is not coming out too great. The cartridge might be too rough. But again, patience. But you can see that while I'm getting that weird brown shit off of this cartridge, I'm not pulling any of this black or this blue or this yellow or etc. And it still has a nice shiny glossy layer to it. Oh, that sound. I'm so sorry. Alright. And, well, alright. I'm going to stop doing that, but I am just pulling this away and lightly running my thumbnail, hardly any pressure at all, because you don't want to catch like a little raise or slight tear in the label and cause it to be worse, but you do want to get this weird grime off there. So at this point, I am going to try to switch over to a cotton pad and give that a little dip. Now, in the case of these, I really just try to get a corner wet. I don't know how well yet. You can kind of tell. And again, I will dab some excess off because you don't want it to be too soaked. Now, because we're using a more soaked pad, I'm going to do extra careful here to try to stay away from the outside edges of the label. Just want to avoid as much wetness bleed in on the edges as possible. Typically it doesn't, like I said, it'll flash off. It doesn't leave any damage typically, but better safe than sorry. And yeah, just get in the habit of it, because sometimes you do have to use rubbing alcohol on a label, and in those scenarios you have to be super careful. Rubbing kind of hard with this wet side here, but with this Bestine and how large these cotton pads are, they actually dry out very quickly. So I'm not actually worried about getting any bleeding on the edge here. We've got some weird gruff in there though. Yeah, it's just cartridge is just rough. I also typically recommend doing this with some sunlight going through a window, but it's not very conducive to recording. So I'm doing this at night. Also, it does seem kind of counterintuitive to be exposing your Super Nintendo cartridges that will be damaged by UV light to UV light, but you're just doing it for short periods of time. You're just doing it because the contrast of the light is much better than like a soft inside light or something like that. If you have like a blue, more like cool industrial style fluorescent bulb or some kind of LED bulb that does a blue spectrum, those work out pretty well too. I actually have a mixture in my in this area where the bulb is two bulbs, and one's a soft light and the other one's a cool industrial. So it makes this process a bit simpler. So these holes here, this is another great use for Q-tips. You're just running around in there, and I do have security bits specifically for these. This cartridge isn't high value enough that I'm worried about someone having made a fake, but anything like pretty much like $20 or over, I will crack that baby open and make sure it's legit. Oh, wow, rough edges on these are just very, very rough. I don't know how well you can see that. Not too great, but yeah, not good. But that's why I got 21 Super Nintendo games for $55 shipped. So I guess I can't be too picky about it. Yeah, this cartridge isn't going to clean up too great, but it does give me an opportunity to show you a whole bunch of tricks for it. See just how not great it's going to be. Okay, so we're about reaching the end of what it seems Vesting is going to be able to do for us here, which is honestly kind of disappointing. It's a lot less than I was hoping that it would do. It is obviously still a lot cleaner than when we started out. Yeah. Yeah. You got some weird. Yeah, you can't really see it. Weird discoloring all around these edges here. And it's just not wanting to come loose. I think we may end up using trying out some ribbon alcohols on this one. Now, inside these grooves here, if you get shit stuck in them, it's not an easy process to get them out. My best bet so far has literally just been to take like either a cotton swab wad or the end of a Q-tip, and you're just running that boy in there. Which one of you is wet? You're just digging it in there real hard, like hard enough that it's gonna fill that channel in, basically. And just rub it back and forth a few times, rinse, repeat, and you get some cleaned up channels there. You can see, get some grossness out of there. Once again, just outside edge. Alright, let's go back to our cotton swab here for a minute, because we're going to do some wide swatches here on the back. Now you'll notice I am being careful to not get this too close to the edge of those labels. I've had the most wet edges on the back labels as opposed to the front. Oh, that's just, what the fuck is, you see that? It's just filled with just grossness. Like, ugh. How can you have cartridges that look like this? Yeah, I do have some focus issues. Sometimes I do jump back and forth between front and back. It's mostly just because I want things to dry out there for a minute. And this besting does do a number on your hands, by the way. Really dries it out. So you wanna keep an eye out for this. You also may notice that you get like some weird, like almost like white, seeming like powderiness to the back of your cartridges. That's just some leftover residue. If you take another like cotton swab or even just a wet paper towel with a little bit of just regular old water, and you wipe that down, and that will clean. That'll clean right up. It will. It will go back to looking like regular old beat up Nintendo plastic. So yeah, we do have some grossness right up in here. It's gonna be interesting. It looks like it's actually leaked under the label, so there might not be a huge amount I can do about that. But again, it's another cartridge. More for a demo for you guys than anything. So we're gonna switch back over to some Q-tips and once again go back to our friend Vesting. Oops, it's a little wet. So you see, I don't know how well if you can see it in there. Yeah, you can't really tell. So right in here already, there's a little bit of wet edge forming up from besting leaking around this corner here. Again, like I said, give that about 6 to 8 hours, and that'll just flash right out of there. Wow, this is really stained. Yeah. So that whatever kind of sauce or something that was came out, and yep, I was correct. That is stained underneath the label. So nothing doing about that one. So take another light dip, dab her out, and then repeat of the front label, though back label actually looks pretty good, so this is just going to take a light coating off just to make sure there's no kind of residue on there. There's not, and we're pretty good. So go in and finish up these nasty little grooves. Yeah, just like something built up in there. And oh, gross. There's like, I don't know if you can see that. There's cobwebs in the corner. Actually, I think I saw another one in the stack that was even grosser than that. So yeah, you'll definitely want to wash up after cleaning one of these things off, especially a whole lot of nasty ones. And once again, just Q-tip going around. You know how to clean. Oops, you can't see that. You know how to clean the bottom of a cartridge. I don't need to tell you that. More interested in labels and other nasty shit on the back. So once again, just cleaning all your edges. So this cartridge is actually a little loose in its frame, so I'm gonna sorry about that. I mean, punch the camera. I'm gonna bust my screwdriver out here and just give these another little quarter turn there, and a little quarter turn there, and so yeah, that's not perfect by any means, but that went from a disgusting, nasty cartridge to a completely, I would say, acceptable. Maybe slightly better than acceptable. Yeah, I'm going to put a little bit more work into this, and I probably will, but I'm not going to make you guys suffer through it. Alright, so I finished up some off-camera work here on the Pinball Dreams cartridge, and as you can see, it came out pretty clean looking. Surface label's got a little bit of scuff to it that I may try to. I don't know. Well, let's see. See if you can see. Nah, see, not really. Yeah, like this over here, like that kind of graininess. That's just like, I don't know, light surface damage that just doesn't necessarily want to come off. Like I can lightly rub it out. Phrasing. Uh, and it will come off. But again, $7 cartridge. I'm not going to put too much more time into this. So, hope you enjoyed this video, and definitely stick around because there'll be another video after this where I'm going to go deeper into just how good besting is for restoration. So I got another cartridge over here that I found in my stack that's got quite a few stickers we're going to take care of. So keep an eye out for that video, and thanks.